2. We are live.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Plugin Roundtable. My name is Patrick Rauland, and I am joined here by Matt Medeiros, Pippin Williamson, and Nikhil Vimal. I know it's going to take just a few seconds for everyone to catch up on the live feed, so why don't we just, we'll go ahead and get started. Why don't you guys take 60 seconds and tell us a little bit about yourselves. Where do you work? What do you do with plugins? And just for fun, where do you live? Starting with you, Matt.
My name is Matt Medeiros. You can find me at mattreport.com. You can find my company at Slocum Studio. And for this talk, I'll be talking about my experience with our Conductor plugin, conductorplugin.com. I am just outside of Boston, closer to Providence, Rhode Island. So that's where I hail from. It's where we do all the stuff. And our studio is out in Dartmouth. So what I'm hoping to bring to today's discussion is the point of view of a plugin, a non-plugin developer, but somebody who's managing a team, marketing a plugin, supporting a plugin, and thinking of future growth for plugins to this very experienced roundtable. So I hope that some of the stuff that I have to say is a value to the audience. And I can already see that there is an overwhelming amount of plugin developers in the audience. So I hope I can bring something to the table.
Awesome. And you, Nick?
I'm Nikhil Vimal. I'm a 15-year-old plugin developer, and you can find me on on Twitter at TechVolts and Nick V on GitHub.
And where do you live?
I just want to say I'm in Orlando for winter break right now because where I live is freezing cold and got me sick, so I'll put it like that.
Okay. Pippin?
My name is Pippin Williamson. I'm a plugin developer. I live in Hutchinson, Kansas, which is kind of the middle of nowhere, right in the middle of the U.S. I am the lead developer behind 3 large plugins: Easy Digital Downloads, which is an e-commerce plugin for WordPress for selling digital products; Restrict Content Pro, which is a membership plugin for selling subscriptions and access to your site; and then also Affiliate WP, which is an affiliate management plugin that then integrates with other membership and e-commerce plugins. I'm a member of the plugin review team for WordPress.org, so I help moderate the plugins that get submitted to the WordPress.org repository. And I've been building plugins for about 4 or 5 years now, and it's what I do full time.
Awesome. So I kind of want to break this into 4 10-minute.
Who are you, Patrick?
Yeah, who are you, Patrick?
Oh, so my name is Patrick Rauland. I work for WooThemes, and I am the product manager for WooCommerce, which is another e-commerce plugin for WordPress. Basically, I help people sell stuff online. So I kind of plan those features, and I think I do a little bit more of the stuff that you do, Matt, where I kind of direct stuff and have a little bit less dev in my day-to-day.
But you are very much a developer.
Yes, yeah, I was on the WooCommerce dev team for like 4 months, and then I went on to product management. But I was a developer and I have some of my own plugins as well. So definitely started there. So I kind of want to break this into maybe like 4 sections. Just getting started. If you barely know what a plugin is, we'll just very quickly cover that, and then some development stuff. And then I think some marketing branding. I think we'll have some good talks about that. And then definitely at the end, Q&A from the audience. So go ahead and ask your questions now, and we'll get to those questions at the end. So let's just get started. Why would someone want to build a plugin? And I think this ties into, why did you build your first plugin? So maybe we can kind of go down the line from left to right, and you can talk about those.
So that'd be me, right?
Or Matt.
Or Matt, yeah, I don't know which way it's going.
I'm all the way on the right. All right, I'll start. So why do you want to build a plugin? What are the benefits of that? It's for us and for my company. I think our very first plugin was Evernote Affiliate when Evernote.com came out with an affiliate program. And I don't know what ever happened to the actual affiliate program, but we were the first ones to build the affiliate plugin for that. And that was really scratching our own itch from our own client needs. And it really got us, that's what our first foray into the WordPress community was, that plugin. And then from there, just continue to build plugins that were either helping us in our own workflow for projects and not until recently really getting into the commercial space just to have a commercial product, but it's still a product that is solving our needs in our workflow, helping us build and complete projects. So I can say that for us, we're scratching our own itch, of course, but if you are an up-and-coming developer, it's a great experience to build the plugin and to have folks like Pippin give you the thumbs up or thumbs down to get into the repo and to meet a community and broaden your reach.
Awesome. Matt, did you release that on WordPress.org?
The affiliate plugin?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So it's the Evernote affiliate plugin. It's I'd probably got a few thousand downloads, but that was years ago. So that was our first one. And we've done a few others since then. We did one where we hooked into Photon for changing the color attributes of photos. And then recently we've launched Note, which is a front-end live editor text widget. We can talk about more about that later.
Okay. And what about you, Nick?
So I got started with plugin development sort of in someone told me that when you're working with WordPress, you'll come across something you can't do with a normal plugin. And so that's kind of the philosophy I've been living by, and just building things that I think that maybe other people would use, definitely I would use, and to make magic with WordPress and to make really cool things happen. So I think that's just how I got started, and lately I've been building my most complex plugins now. But it's been a year since I started building plugins. So.
Okay. And what about you, Pippin? Why would you build a plugin, and what was your first one?
I think the biggest reason to build a plugin is you find something that you need to do or some behavior you need to change, and that's how a plugin that either builds that feature in, that provides that feature, changes that behavior, or whatever it is. My very first plugin came about because I was doing client work at the time, building websites, and I was building this website for a business, and they needed the ability to change their fonts on the fly. So they wanted to upload a font file at any time and apply it to some text element. That feature didn't exist, and so I built it as a plugin. And so, I mean, any feature you want, whatever it is, I mean, whether it's super simple to something really advanced, is a plugin.
Right. So, I mean, it could be something as simple as a font uploader or an e-commerce platform that does products and orders and everything.
Yep. Or even much simpler or much more advanced.
Very cool. So I think Pippin, you are one of the most prolific plugin developers. You have 50 plus. Would I be wrong with that saying that?
You'd be a little bit low. Sorry. I think my video is freezing up a little.
Yeah, I was asking, how many plugins have you built? Probably more than 50, I'm guessing.
It's a little bit low, actually. It's around 200.
Oh my God!
Sorry.
Sorry.
So
there we go.
Think about plugins. So, like, to say you built 200 plugins really doesn't mean anything, because that could be as little as 200 lines of code. Sure. One plugin could be 500,000 lines of code versus a plugin could be 2 lines of code. There's a plugin that I released on WordPress.org, and I technically co-authored it with Andrew Norcross, and it is 1 line of code. So, I mean, to say you have 200 plugins doesn't necessarily mean that much.
Sure, okay. So where did you, I think you already touched on this, but where did you get your ideas from? Are all 200 of these from client work and personal, your own itch?
Most of them are from scratching my own itch. I stopped doing client work pretty soon after I got into plugin development. Client work kind of led me into the commercial realm for plugins, and that quickly transitioned into a full-time job. And very quickly, I kind of just started building plugins for things that I needed or things that I wanted. So I found a feature that I wanted to have, and so I would build a plugin for that. Or I found something that didn't behave the way that I wanted, and so I built a plugin for that. And so sometimes, like, you can go a day and build 3 new plugins that, because they're super tiny and they're just 3 little things that you needed.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Awesome. And what about you, Nick?
So wait, what's the question now? Because I think
So I mean, you started doing plugin development recently, and you built a couple simple ones, you said, and now you're building an advanced one. Where did you get it from?
So wait, say it again. Sorry, I think I keep jumping.
Yeah, just where did you get your ideas from?
Where do I get my ideas from? All right, that's the main question. Perfect. So my ideas come from the community a lot. So Pippin the other day said he wanted a plugin built, and I got that built pretty fast. So that was an example. But a lot of the times I see something small that's missing, or I see just, it's mostly like some idea I saw, but sometimes I see a niche that needs to be filled. And so with that, I usually take that idea and I turn it into a plugin. So, I had the idea of making an e-commerce platform and stuff like that, but those are all filled. So I try to see where there are areas where it's not filled and see what I can try with that. So
I love the plugin that you built the other day for me. So I think this was a really cool example of where just reaching out and saying, hey, this is something that I need, some feature or behavior that I would like. And at the time, I wasn't able to build it for time constraints, and so I reached out and said, hey, would someone like to build this plugin? All I want is that in a BBPress form, I want to hit Shift-Enter and have it submit my reply, as opposed to tabbing over to the submit button or clicking submit. And so Nick popped up and immediately said, sure, I'll build it.
That's awesome. And I bet that wasn't too big of a plugin.
no,
Pretty small.
Pretty small.
So what about you, Matt? You've built, like, I feel like, Matt, you've built a wide range of plugins. I mean, so the affiliate one and Conductor and Notes, how did you get all those different ideas?
Yeah, so the affiliate one sort of just was just off of a whim, right? That was our very first thing, foray into the plugins, like I mentioned before. It wasn't something we continued with. We actually worked with Evernote in the very early stages to help get that built. But more recently with Conductor, it was very much, hey, we're building client projects, doing all this stuff that is now known as Conductor. And it was actually started building it a year ago. And not until the last 90 to 120 days have we actually productized it. And it was just it was, like I said, it was scratching that itch, and we were looking at it saying, look, if we can build projects with this plugin, so can others. Let's. And I formed a small team of advisors, which one of being Pippin on this panel, and we went to town and we started building it. Note, on the other hand, is sort of the my freemium model to Conductor. It gets people exposed to building things in the customizer. We are very focused on the WordPress customizer, and while we're not giving Conductor away at the .org free level, Note is a great entry-level product that says, okay, I can start. I can envision myself working on my WordPress site in the customizer, editing content, making content changes, and oh, by the way, if I want to take it a step further, I can do something with this thing called Conductor, and that's sort of the idea behind that.
Awesome. So I know there's a lot of developers in the audience, so I want to get onto the technicals. What tools do you guys use? Code editors, and for running your own local server, and whatever other tools you use. What is the must-have tool out there? We'll just start again with Matt.
I can tell you that my team primarily uses PHP Storm to develop with. We use Bitbucket and GitHub, Trello for project planning, Slack for communication. I was listening to the theme roundtable before, and we're not really doing anything with like Sass or Grunt or Bower or like all of these new names yet. It's still very much old-fashioned HTML, CSS, JavaScript. We're not doing anything with that, although we had a team meeting about that today for the new year to start looking into some of that stuff. But as far as technical tools on the desktops and the laptops, primarily PHP Storm. I use Sublime Text. I used to use Coda. And then we do all of our management through Trello, GitHub, and Bitbucket.
All right. Anyone else?
I use a lot of command line tools, so WP-CLI, Git. I do use Sass for my plugins, funny enough. There's a lot of reasons why you wouldn't and you would use it. Right now I don't have anything like, I don't have a perfect workflow set up for all that in terms of plugin development, but Composer, I use some of that too. So, and then I like PHP Storm. So.
Personally, I think every tool is whatever you like best. I don't think there's any such thing as the best tool out there. Personally, I like Sublime. I really like simple code editors. I used to be a Notepad++ fan, and then I went to Sublime. Anything I can do in the command line for me is a lot faster. So WP-CLI and any other command line tool. I do really like Slack and Hall for team communication, and then Trello for organization, and then GitHub is my code base for everything.
So it definitely seems like once you get into plugin development, like managing your code is huge. I feel like code editors can vary a lot, but everyone has to have GitHub or maybe Bitbucket. Like that is perhaps one of the biggest tools. And I feel like when I started my development path years ago, that was one of the big steps. Was when I realized that you can store stuff
getting into version control is probably one of the most important things you can do.
Yeah, I would
like that's one thing that as an advanced developer you absolutely have to do in some form or other.
You mean with easy digital downloads, you can't just keep it locally on your machine and create folder?
I did for the first 6 months of it.
Okay.
Oh.
Interesting.
So that's why version 1.0 doesn't actually exist.
Oh.
Interesting.
I think it's easy to not do like versioning and stuff like that if you're a solo developer, especially if you're just getting into it, because you're like, I know I got to drink 8 glasses of water a day, but you don't, right? You know you have to exercise every day, but you don't, right? And until you start working with somebody else, like you bring in that second developer, that second partner, and you're like, oh my God, we can't be emailing each other functions.php back and forth. This is not going to work.
Totally.
It happens a lot. I've heard plenty of stories that is how some people's workflow, and it works for them early, but then later on, I would suspect it gets pretty crazy. So,
I know for myself, I worked a couple years ago. I worked at an agency, and they refused to pay for like private GitHub repos or Bitbucket. Maybe it wasn't around. No, it was around. I don't know. We couldn't get version control, and I'm like, guys, we need to. Like, this is. You don't understand how important it is. There are 2 developers here. We can't email stuff, and yeah. That was. I think that was when I'm like, all right.
That could become a very expensive mistake.
So I got an audience question here that relates to one of the questions I wanted to ask you guys. So I had the audience question here, and then I have a follow-up. So so if you have a premium plugin that isn't on WordPress.org, something you're selling on your own site, how do you send out updates to people? How is that possible?
There's a lot of different ways that you can do it. So WordPress technically has a updates API that it uses, but it's also in the same way that you can hook any other plugin into WordPress to do different things, you can actually hook into the updates API. So when WordPress goes down the list of plugins and says, hey, tell me, is there an update for this? Usually it pings the WordPress.org server, and WordPress.org then sends back a response. Well, you can hijack those, and you can say, instead of going to WordPress.org, I want you to go to my own server, and I'm going to build my own response system for that to send back the version number. Here's the new download link. Here's all of those different things. There's a lot of different tools out there for distributing updates. So if you're selling plugins, then there's other plugins you can build. One of the plugins that I built for Easy Digital Downloads is specifically for that, for selling updates. There's one. I know there's one for WooCommerce. There's other ones. If you just want to distribute it yourself, you don't want to sell it, there's other ways to do that as well. There's a whole bunch of different options.
Yeah, I use a plugin called Software Licensing from Easy Digital Downloads, and that bad boy not only is the lifeline to the business, it's definitely well worth every penny. Thank you, sir.
So the question I wanted to ask is something that I personally struggle with. Is I have it's like 10 premium plugins, I think. And every once in a while, something will happen with the platform, with your plugin, and you need to change database data. And I hate managing database updates. And I think, Pippin, didn't you just talk about this? Like, how do you handle? I hate writing database updates. Is there a good way of doing it?
Yeah, there's a couple of ways. The first thing you need to keep in mind, you have to think about how large of these updates are you doing. Are you changing one option in your settings, or are you updating potentially 50,000 or 100,000 rows in the database? And those are very different beasts to tackle. If you're updating a ton of data, then you really need to be doing batch processing. I won't go into detail about it, but there was in the first session, or second session actually, during Applied Filters, we talked about it, but there was a link. Thomas Griffin just released a batch processing script that is very similar to what I use. It's very similar to what a lot of other people use, and it'll do a lot for you. So if you need to do that, go just like Google Thomas Griffin batch updates.
Awesome. Have you had to do that, Matt?
I have not personally, but I know my development team has had to do some similar things. I don't have the exact answer for you, though.
Well, I mean, do you know if it's been a pain for them, or is it just me?
No, I really can't. I really can't remember them saying anything about it, to be honest with you.
Just me. Dang.
Yeah.
Yep, never done it.
And you haven't done it, Nick?
No, just haven't done it yet.
They're kind of fun, to be honest. Like, they're fun in a way because it's to me, it's like the reason I become a programmer is to solve problems.
Mm-hmm.
And when you say, oh, we have X thousands of sites that are running this, and we know that some are this size, and we know that potentially we have some that have 1 million records. How do we modify all of those? Go. Find the answer. Like, figure it out. And like, that's a really fun challenge to me. I like those things. I don't like dealing with taxes. I don't like dealing with buggy code, but I like solving problems like that.
Sure.
Like those, when you get to work on those things, like that's the day that I'm happy I'm a programmer.
Sure. Okay. I do like challenging problems. I just hate like database updates because if you find there's a bug, you have to like reset the database and
they're
try.
Scary as all get out because you think, oh look, I might hose all of the data in this database.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So they're scary, that's for sure.
So speaking of database, I review a lot of plugins that people submit for WooCommerce, and they always have custom tables like left, right, and center, and I think once you get into plugin development, like it's really it's a bad practice to use them sometimes. Is there a good reason to use custom tables? When do you use
there's
them?
so many good reasons to
Yes.
use custom tables.
There are good reasons and there are bad reasons, but I'll let Pippin take this one.
Okay.
Okay. So that's actually one of the #1 regrets I have for Easy Digital Downloads is we did not use a custom table from day one for storing transaction records and different things like that. We recently, one of the upgrade routines we wrote was to move a bunch of stuff from some of the standard WordPress tables into a custom table. The thing is if you decide just to dump everything in Post Meta or WP Post or WP Options, sometimes it can work really, really well, but there's some data that's just not meant to be stored there. And you're going to find it more difficult to store it there and to pull it out of there than if you actually design a database schema for your data that you're storing. So it's not always the right answer and it's not always the wrong answer. It really depends on what you're storing. And
I mean, I would check the codex, because the other day I saw someone pull a permalink out of the WordPress database when you just have get permalink. Like, it was literally the exact same thing. So I would check for what the default functions are and stuff like that first, other than just looking at some tutorial, that makes it overcomplicated. So
yeah, well, and there's a lot of data stored in WordPress that like the standard tables work perfectly fine for.
Right.
So like if you are creating a directory of authors, like the users table works great for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you have sensitive data, that doesn't necessarily work quite as well. So I mean, you should decide it. There used to be a blanket statement that custom tables were bad, and that is horrible. That is a horrible, horrible statement in my opinion, because there are cases where they're absolutely best, and there are cases when you don't need them and when you shouldn't use them.
Do you think that's kind of because the WordPress community has like grown up? I think in the beginning you can be like, never use custom tables. We have custom post types and they're amazing. And I think then you hit these weird edge cases where they just don't work, and you should absolutely use a custom table. Do you think it's just we're growing as a community?
I think we're growing as a community, and we're doing more and more complex things. We're bending WordPress into different shapes.
Sure.
And then when it comes to like app development, right, you can get into some pretty crazy things with databases. So.
Yep.
So, do you guys? How do you guys feel about unit tests? There's something that's. I feel like those are something that if you come from the Rails world, and I built some Rails apps, that unit tests are like you live and breathe them. Whereas in the WordPress space, they're not that often used. Pippin, have you written unit tests for all 200 plugins, or are there just certain ones that win?
No, I've written unit tests for my bigger plugins. So like Restricted Content Pro, Affiliate WP, and Easy Digital Downloads all have unit tests now, or at least some unit tests.
Mm-hmm.
But
Okay.
definitely not all plugins. Sometimes I write them just because I'm like, this will be fun.
Is it just because it's a time investment, or?
Yeah, a lot of time it's a time investment, but also like writing a unit test for a one-line plugin, I'm not sure at that point I'm unit testing the plugin or I'm unit testing WordPress core.
Mm-hmm.
Which is not necessarily. Sometimes it's just kind of silly. But for a big plugin, writing unit tests is an absolutely fantastic thing that you can do.
Okay. What about you, Matt?
That's another thing that we actually talked about today. It's not something that we're practicing right now. It is something that we're planning on moving into in the new year. Sort of our thing too is we're a client services agency, so we're balancing time. Same thing. It's like we want to do all these things, and cash flow at the end of the year is the best part, right? So you're just getting people to finish up their projects, and that way we can wrap up for the fiscal year and move into the next year, and then hopefully we can invest some time into doing stuff like this.
It can be really difficult to try and like justify the amount of time it takes to set up your unit testing suite, to write all your unit tests, get your code coverage, etc. I think once you have them, it's a lot easier to see the value then, as opposed to beforehand. So just as an example, we released Easy Digital Downloads 2.2 within the last week and a half or so, and like a day or two before the release, we decided to do some more unit testing, and we actually ended up finding 2 or 3 bugs in the code from those unit tests that we wouldn't have found otherwise. And so there it was a little easier to see the value. But if you don't have them yet, it's more of a, I mean, it's an investment that you don't know if it will return.
Sure. I know from my our own experience that running an e-commerce plugin, if you can write unit tests that catch those little rounding errors, that is
so
huge.
helpful.
I remember debugging while I was doing dev. I remember debugging a couple things where if the state was this and the other country was this and they bought exactly this, it was off by 1 cent. And you're like, where? Oh my God, where's the bug? So
because here's the thing, when you're dealing with numbers in e-commerce, you're usually dealing, like when we think of numbers, when we go to the store or we buy something online, we're talking 2 decimal places.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 decimal places usually stay as 2 decimal places. However, when you're in e-commerce, you may not realize that behind the scenes you're starting with 10 decimal places, and when you add them all together, they end up back at 2 decimal places. But if you round them early, you're missing a penny at the end, and you're like, "Where's the damn penny? Where did it go?"
It is the worst. So
We had that in 2.2. We had an issue, and I wanted to just close it. I was like, "Look, let's just ignore the penny. It won't matter. No one will find it." And I'm glad that the support guys that were behind were like, "No, I know of one user specifically that will have this. We have to find that penny. Where is it at?"
It's good to have a team, right?
Yeah.
So I have one more development question before we move on to the next kind of section about marketing your plugin. How do you guys release updates? I mean, both of you guys have really big plugins. Do you release an update a month? Do you do 100 commits? How do you do this?
Go for it, Matt.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, I'm just curious how you decide to push out how and when you decide to push out an update. Is it, if you get 10 bugs in, do you fix 1 bug and then push it out, or is it about features?
That's a great question. Well, we haven't run into the 10 bug scenario yet, but we definitely ran into testing up against, for just recent memory, testing up against 4.1 and the customizer not working properly in our current version of Conductor. So that was definitely just let's fix the customizer issue and get that shipped, and we shipped that 24 hours before 4.1 launched, and it was just that, right? So it wasn't like we got a whole bunch of other things on our wish list, on our Trello wish list that we'd love to do, like for UI stuff, but again, like I said, sort of at the end of the year, we're in crunch time with client work. There's no time for the future feature stuff, so it's like let's just get this thing rocking for 4.1 so it works in the customizer, because it was literally broken, so we had no choice.
Right.
So get that fixed and just push it and move back to finishing up client work.
Updates really, for me, it usually, if it is a feature, we hold it off until we're done for a big release. So like we pushed out 2.2, and that was in development for about 3 or 4 months before we released it. Other ones, like almost all of the point releases, go out pretty quick in order to solve a problem. So if we find a serious bug, like for example, discount codes just randomly don't apply anymore, or like the discount amounts are wrong, or something bad like that, we're going to push an update out that night. We're going to push an update out as soon as we fix it, as soon as we confirm that we've got this fixed. If we have other minor bugs, if we haven't done a release in a while, we might just go ahead and do a release that has a bunch of smaller changes, smaller minor improvements, minor bug fixes, etc. Honestly, sometimes because why not? Like, why hold those? If it's going to be 3 months until your next big release, and you're not expecting to have a crucial bug fix that you have to push out tomorrow, like, go ahead, push that release out. Users like having their bugs fixed as opposed to leaving them sit around. So.
Sure. Awesome.
Yeah, and it could be very amateur on our part to be squash a bug, release, release. Again, the commercial space is something that's very new to us, so we're looking at it like let's crush any bugs we have. And for feature releases, I'm not sort of bottling up anything and sort of doing a major release. I'm just rolling out releases and announcing them and talking about it.
Security would be a relatively fast release, though, right? If there was a security issue, then always, right?
Yep.
So I definitely want to say, save some time for some marketing stuff. This is the type of stuff that I am just learning. You know, how do you brand your plugins? One of the things I wanted to ask you, Pippin, is you have 3 brands, whereas I know at WooThemes we have 1 brand, and under WooThemes we have the Woo slider and WooCommerce, and then you went with a different route, and you have easy digital downloads and affiliate WP and restrict content. Is that good? Is it bad? What do you think about it?
Depends on the day.
Depends on the day.
Whether I woke up on the right side of the bed or not. No, overall, I think it works well because each one is their own distinct product. So, for example, affiliate WP we can cater it towards WooCommerce users. We can also cater it towards easy digital downloads users. So if we had built EDD affiliates, as an example, we would be limiting our user base to the EDD user base. By building it as a separate product, we can target it towards WooCommerce, we can target it towards EDD, to WP Commerce, to MemberPress, to MemberMouse, to A-Member, to every e-commerce membership plugin out there. Restrict Content Pro is kind of the same scenario. It was an earlier plugin, so there wasn't nearly as much there wasn't as much thought process behind the branding for that one. It was just kind of, I was building plugins and I built one and I released it.
Okay. So, Nick, I know you have a couple small plugins, and you're about to release your first premium plugin, or that's in the pipeline.
Very soon, I'll say. And it's an EDD extension. So, anyways, your question.
So, you're what I would call an extension developer. You're building something else for someone else's platform. Right. How important is branding to you, if at all?
That's a good question. Well, so like lately I've been working with BBPress and BuddyPress. I suppose branding is important there. I don't really know.
But are you I think what Patrick's going at, like, are you going to brand it as Nick's plugin, or are you going to brand it as, like, put it under the BBPress brand or under the EDD brand, things like that?
That really depends on the situation. My EDD plugin will be under the EDD brand, I think. I think that's how I'm going to do it that time. But I think that depends. I guess it depends on what side of the bed I wake up to and decide, because that's a tough question, actually. I got to think about that. But I think it really depends. So my BBPress plugins are Nick's plugins. Mm-hmm. But I think there'll be certain extensions where I'll say, like, I'm just going to throw it into the EDD market.
Yeah. Well, let me ask a question that might be a little bit easier. So, are you going to talk about your plugins on your own site? Are you going to promote them? Even if it's under EDD, are you still going to?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think I'll keep it like that.
It's very much that's personal branding.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And Matt, what are you doing with? I know you have Conductor and Notes. Are those all going to be under one roof, or are they going to be under doing something else?
So the marketing channels that I sort of do, very familiar doing the podcast stuff. Our company, the studio, we do a lot with YouTube marketing, right, and YouTube, creating YouTube videos, reviews, and sort of informational pieces, and that's our strongest sort of channel in that sector, right? So we do a lot of that. It's going to be all under the same roof. We keep Conductor plugins sort of separate, but we still let people know it is a Slocum product, right? We're very much, like I said before, we are agency and product, and we're not thinking any other way for the coming future. We do a lot with themes too, so we have all of our themes on .org, and that's also another sort of stream where we can also cross-promote the use of Note and the use of Conductor at the same time. So whether or not if they're not upgrading to a premium theme, at least we can get some exposure on the premium plugin side.
And I'll jump back in quickly by saying that my decision now is just because I'm starting out pretty early as an extension developer. I'm just starting now, and so I think I will have the other brand to kind of back it up. But maybe as I evolve, slowly I'll be selling it on my own marketplace as more people start downloading it, and maybe I'll want to support them myself or something like that. So I think it all depends. For now, it's just starting out though, and maybe it'll work for some people starting out, maybe it won't. So.
Okay. Another, I think, a related question here that the audience asked a few minutes ago is, what is the best marketing channel you found for customer acquisition? And I think, Matt, you might be able to speak to this.
Yeah, so doing a lot of podcasting, a lot of video production really helps. I think I saw one of the questions, I don't know if it was in chat or in our own chat here, was when do you start marketing? Like, do you do it at launch or something like that? No, you start if you got the idea, you start it now. Like if that product's not out, you start it now, and that's certainly what I did with Conductor. Started promoting it well in advance. But my main channels are the podcast, video, in-person talking to people at WordCamps, at WordPress meetups. It doesn't stop. Even our client work, we're showing them Conductor, and they're buying licenses, and they're customers, right? So the hustle is wherever you can be, but so far the best stuff for us has been podcasting and YouTube.
Awesome. Either of you guys?
I'm a lazy marketer.
I haven't gotten there yet.
I just built. I mean, I'll be perfectly honest. Like, I don't really do a lot of marketing. So, like affiliate WP is kind of an interesting beast because in a way it almost markets itself because of the fact that it ties so directly into Easy Digital Downloads, into WooCommerce, into WP Commerce, etc. And so a listing on all of those sites drives astounding amounts of traffic. Like we have more direct traffic from those referrals than we do anywhere else. And like that's the marketing. So it's kind of why I say I'm a bit of a lazy marketer.
But you already have an awesome personal brand.
There is there's that brand to back it up. That is for sure.
You are not the overnight success that some people might think you are.
No.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, Nick, if you're releasing a premium plugin on a marketplace, how much promoting are you going to do, if any?
Probably a good amount if it's really, really good. I'll put it like that. So, like in premium plugins, yes, I promote the plugin a lot. I'd write about it because I think, in my opinion, it'd be a pretty cool accomplishment for me. And releasing it on another marketplace will definitely get a lot more traffic from selling it myself sometimes because I think I need to develop my personal brand too. So yeah.
I want to back up what Nick is saying. Like looking back before Affiliate WP, like when Restrict Content Pro was first starting and a couple other plugins like that. Yeah, actually, I marketed them a lot. In that I did a lot of personal writing about them. I did a lot of tutorials on my own personal site. Like there was a lot of talking going on about those. Now, at the time, I didn't really think of that as marketing. Now, after the fact, absolutely, it is a market because it's all of that background evidence and support that's built up over 5 years.
Yep.
Awesome. So we're running out of time. I just want to make sure we're hitting all the best questions. Matt, you talked about your podcast, and I think I heard in another podcast interview that you sold beta access to Conductor. How that sounds magical to me. how did you convince someone to pay you to test your product? Was that all the podcast?
So the real quick flyby on that is I did a lot of talking to my advisory panel beforehand, right? And there was everyone, including Pippin, was like, don't give this away. I knew from stuff that I was looking into that I did not want to give something away for free because I knew I wouldn't get any feedback. So for 2 weeks before WordCamp New York, we were promoting it, and it was just video tutorials just showing people what we were building and having them sign up to an email list. And over that 2 weeks, we got 163 early signups. It said it was a paid beta, sign up for a paid beta. Nobody knew what the price was. I didn't know what the price was. I mean, I was still figuring it out. And then going into WordCamp New York, we officially launched it. That way I could be there to talk to people. And we ended up doing, and then we launched it, and then we did the paid beta release. 24 hours only. We sold 40 copies at $100 each, right? So that was about $4,000 in revenue, which proved the model, at least proved the model to us that somebody's willing to pay for this. And that was it. There was no real convincing people. There wasn't much up front. It was just all the videos, all the discussions that we did, and all the tutorials.
Your video is very convincing because it's a kind of product that can be shown off very well in a video.
Yeah.
And sorry, how much of that was at the WordCamp? Any of that?
The actual transactions?
Yeah.
No, I didn't take any transactions at WordCamp.
Oh, okay. But you talked to people there, and then
the law.
No, but you talked to people there, and then maybe how many people found your site, and how many people did you talk to in person?
Yeah. So I mean, we released, we opened up the signups at WordCamp New York, and so it was just tweeting it out that day. I talked to probably a dozen or so people. I sat at Gravity Form's table because Carl wasn't there. So thanks, Carl. And I was able to show off the product and get signups. And over that course of whatever that time was till the next week, so about a week, the signups were open, and about 160 signups.
Awesome.
Does it work with Gravity Forms, Matt, or does it break?
There is there is actually a future add-on coming for Gravity Forms.
There we go. Now Carl will forgive you, I think.
So I think one of the coolest questions that we've been asked so far is, what is one tip from your personal workflow that you wish everyone knew about?
Get 8 hours of sleep.
Oh.
Sleep? No, I'm
serious. Sorry, it is the number one thing that I've done that has helped improve my workflow, helped improve my day-to-day work, and overall happiness. I am far more productive now when I sleep eight hours a night than when I slept 4 hours a night.
All right. I love that it's not technical. Love it.
Take breaks.
I have another non-technical one. It might not be exactly to this, but just because I talk to so many like WordPress startups and plugin startups, you start marketing right away, start telling your story right away. Don't be afraid. If you're out there and you're building an EDD competitor, don't be afraid, right? Build it your way, do it, right? It's only going to motivate Pippin to build something even better, and really, take advantage of that, of the passion that you have to build this stuff. Don't be afraid to either jump out and start it, but don't stop marketing now. Start doing it as soon as you possibly can.
Start a little more simple sometimes. I think that's
I like that one a lot.
Because I think a lot of people forget that, and they create something really complex at first, but it tends to have a lot of issues. So I'd get a lot of practice, see what the community is like, get some free plugins involved. I think that's a common piece of advice, but I still see people sort of forget that sometimes. So just
you don't have to build one monster product.
Right. I think so. I think some people forget about that sometimes.
So kind of start lean, like a startup model.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good way to put it. Yeah.
All right. Well, we have like 30 seconds left, so I don't know. Tell me something, give me one word to inspire new plugin developers, or a sentence. Go.
Build a plugin with less than 10 lines of code. Go for it. See what you can do.
You are the next best person to follow in 2015.
Oh, dang it, man. What Pippin said.
What Pippin said. All right. All right. What Pippin said. I think we're done, guys. So thanks everyone for watching. Hope you guys learned something, and
Thanks.
we're out of
I
here.
hope you learned something.
See you guys.
See ya.
Thank you.
Bye.